Well, the top GOP frontrunners in the race for 2016 gaining popularity, arguably because they don't have any political experience at all. Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and Carly Fiorina surging to the top in a recent poll with a combined 56% of the national vote. So what's so appealing about these political outsiders, and could one of them actually win the White House? Here with a look at the handful of past presidents who have done exactly that, presidential historian Jane Hampton Cook. Nice to see you this morning, Jane. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is an interesting time. There's so much distaste and disdain for Washington right now that maybe we could actually see a political outsider. But we don't have any war hero presidents right now, or candidates right now. But we have a long history in this country of electing war hero presidents, don't we?
We do. We've had 4.5 instances in American history where we've elected a political outsider, someone with no elected experience. 3 of those times were war heroes. Zachary Taylor won the Mexican-American War. General Grant won the Civil War. And then Dwight Eisenhower, of course, won World War II. And all of those generals went on to become president without ever, being elected to anything before. And Zachary Taylor said that he hadn't even voted in an election before he was president. So, we don't have anyone in the race right now with those types of credentials, military leadership credentials.
We do have some business experience, and
right.
you brought up the president. I think it's interesting, Herbert Hoover. Tell us about Herbert Hoover.
Well, Herbert Hoover was a millionaire, businessman, engineer, had a mining company, and in World War I, he started distributing food and won international and national acclaim and prominence. And then he was Commerce Secretary in the 1920s, and then he became president in 1928. But he had never been elected to anything before. So I think that's really fascinating. We elected a millionaire back then to become president.
What about Chester Arthur?
He's my indirect president that didn't have any politically elected experience. Arthur was the head of the New York Port Authority. He was an appointed position at that point, but he was a New Yorker, and so they put him on the ticket as the VP in 1880, and then President James Garfield, who had been a congressman, was assassinated, and Arthur became president. So it was an indirect way, in some ways, to the presidency without any political elected experience.
So some of them had been appointed, as you point out, but
yes,
none of them had been elected. But if this happens in 2016, this would be presidential history in the making, right? Because none of them have been appointed to anything.
Absolutely. So this would be a very historic election if we elected a political outsider. But I also think it speaks to America and who we are. The fact that we traded royalty for representation, and that anyone can rise and in a leadership position and prove themselves worthy of, taking that oath of office. So it's going to be a very interesting election to see kind of, what ends up surfacing to the top. Is it the outsider, or is it the insider that says, hey, I really am the most experienced as a governor or a senator?
And it's fascinating because we've often elected governors in this country. So it seems to be a shift right now happening. It's interesting. Jane Hampton Cook, we appreciate you joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Clayton.